recording and start streaming. Okay, Marie, take it away.
Okay, all right. First of all, I'd like to wish those who are celebrating Hanukkah a happy Hanukkah, and wishing
Thank you.
those who are anticipating the Christmas holidays to have a wonderful, peaceful holiday. And I also would like to thank Soraya and Judith for filling out the bags for the children for Sweets with Santa. And at the same time, because I think Soraya came in and she was very, very helpful. So please give her our best wishes.
Absolutely.
Also would like to thank Meredith and Tricia and Lori for writing the letters, Santa letters.
That was really fun.
Thank you to everybody who was so enthusiastic.
That was
about things.
great.
And Alex for playing Santa.
Yeah.
Did I hit all the bases?
And Meredith offered too, after I'd already doled out the letters. I'm sorry, Megan chimed in. She was going to write letters too, but I already doled them out. So she was my backup pinch hitter.
That was really fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, good.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank everybody. So we will now call the meeting officially to order and welcome anyone, public comments. And we'll look at the November minutes for approval. Are there any corrections or revisions?
I just
have one,
have
Marie.
two very, very quick ones. On the as the meeting opened, it's December 14th is our meeting tonight.
Right.
And then on the second page, under the construction grant, it says replace the boiler room. I think that should be door. That's all.
Okay. Megan, you also said that you had a comment.
I'm sorry.
I was going to correct the room door as well.
All right.
Sorry, guys.
Are there any others?
I
Meredith?
just have I'm not sure if this is a typo or not, but on the third page under reopening plan, it says the positive test rate is 21% currently. Is that accurate or should that be 2.1?
No, I think it was 2.1.
2.1.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be horrifying.
Right. And
Yeah.
just for posterity, I didn't know if we wanted that on record.
Which rate was it though?
2.1.
It's the second bullet point under reopening plan.
Okay.
Thanks,
And then-
Lori.
Under that same reopening plan, I think it's RCS school district rather than an S. It should be a D school district, I think. Library function
Yes,
with,
RCS. CSD.
right.
Okay.
Are there any others? I think we've all chosen the very same ones.
Well, it shows that we're reading them.
Right, right. So we will entertain a motion to accept them with the revisions.
I make a motion to accept the minutes with the corrections. Sorry.
And a second?
I second it.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Director's reports?
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see, where's the one I want? This one. Share, and then, okay. So, in the past since we last met, we have carried on at the library. One of our changes is we, up and through October, have been doing the story times in the park. In November and December, we began. I'm sorry, I'm trying to start the slideshow and talk. It doesn't work. I'll just do this. It's fine. We began doing Zoom story time, so this is another live story time opportunity as opposed to just the video story times. Our first one we had 2 families come, and our second one we had 4 families come. So I like that rate of growth. 4 families was actually nice. I think it was like 7 or 8 kids. It really did allow it to be very interactive. Liz did it. I thought she did a really good job. The kids were able to guess and shout out answers. So it really had the feel of a real story time. So I was happy with that. This was a bit of excitement in the last month. As you all know, we had the Public Works project on Main Street, and I learned the hard way. So the first time, I was not in the building when the ceiling started to leak. What happened was water got turned off, and when it turned on, it repressurized so quickly that apparently there's some kind of pressure. This is our on-demand hot water heater. and it's in the ceiling tiles in the corridor leading to the bathrooms. It basically, the pressure gauge on this wasn't able to withstand the burst of water, so it started leaking. I think it's always leaked, which is why there's a drip pan here, which I didn't realize until this year. But it started to leak and water came flying through the ceiling. So I kind of called the other team and said, this is how you turn the water off, and drove down. It really wasn't that bad. I had to throw away a couple ceiling tiles and just did a really good job kind of drying the inside of the ceiling area there so you don't have mold. But it wasn't a big deal. But then they turned off the water again, and I was like, oh, I've learned my lesson. We'll turn off our water when I shut off the water, and turn the water on slowly so that it pressurizes not quickly. But I don't know if this is good news or bad news because it didn't matter. It's still, the exact same thing happened. So even though it took me like a minute to turn this one valve about 45 degrees as slowly as I could, the exact same thing happened. So the long story short is we're getting a new hot water heater. Prostico's ordered it. I think they may have it in there. So we're just waiting for that. So that's exciting. We carried on with the various take and makes. These are just two examples. Every Tuesday we start these. This was a tessellated leaf craft. This was a rubber band racer, so it's a race car kids built. We were recycling the CDs here. These are old CDs we withdrew from the collection and gave away. A couple failures. We're going to have a pie making program called Who's Afraid of Pie Dough, in which one of our staff members, Amy, used to work as a pastry chef. And she was going to teach this class, but unfortunately we had no sign-ups for that. And we also had an outer space day in which kids were going to drop in to pick up a craft, and I had a really rudimentary kind of kid planetarium projector set up in the community room, but we didn't have any takers on that either. Part of the problem with outer space day may have been we had to reschedule it because one of the days we had no water was a Saturday. So we figured that wasn't a day to encourage people to come into the library. So those were two disappointments. Something else that's been going on is, as I'm sure you've all heard me tell, we've had challenges with our DVD circulation. It's been kind of, prior to this year, it was a long, slow decline. This year it's become a precipitous decline. So we made these what we call binge bundles. And staff have kind of grouped kind of 5 DVDs on a theme. And we kind of circulate them all together. They've been moderately successful. Anything that we can do to get those DVDs out the door feels like a win. But they've also been just kind of fun to see people looking through them and getting their reaction. You all know that Letters to Santa came and went. I know it's an agenda item, so I'm not going to say too much about it here. Yoga at home. So this was actually one of our first more successful virtual programs. We had Courtney Johannesson, who has been our in-person yoga instructor in past years, did a virtual yoga. We had, I think, 10 people sign up, and I think 6 people showed up for this. I thought she did a good job. I think, Trisha, you were there. I don't know if you had any...
Yes, but excellent. More of that.
So
it was really my speed, too.
Yeah, she does a really good job. She really
took
knows
it really
her audience.
slow for us old folks, yeah.
Or just our stiff folks. And then we're continuing our weekly story times. We are up to letter N was last week. This week is letter O. So we should look for some owl crafts. So those continue every week. We get rid of all of them. I shouldn't say get rid of. We find happy homes for all of them. So people come and pick them up. And then something else that's new is we are in the midst of a trial run for something called LibCal. This is a calendar product that lets people sign up for programs from our website. We used it for Sweets with Santa, and it worked really well, I thought. Meredith, did you find that it was easy?
It was super easy.
It's basically people just write in their name and their email address, and then once they do that, it sends them, for a virtual program, it sends them the Zoom link, and then 24 hours or however you program it before the program, it resends them the Zoom link. It's great because people can sign themselves up for programs, or staff can sign people up when they call the library. So I think our trial ends sometime in early January. It was like $600 for the year, so it's not nothing, but I think it's made our sign-ups for programs much more seamless. Previously, we were pushing people out to Eventbrite which is a third-party software which you can't link to from our website. So people would have to leave our website to go sign up for programs, whereas this is all integrated into our website. So I've been really happy with how that's going. Here we go. And this is just a cute photo of someone mailing a letter to Santa. Santa himself, star of the day. And then this is the Zoom screen with most of the attendees on it. Let's see here. What else do I have for you all? Oh, I know. So you all know that we offer digital magazines. This is a really happy accident. We were renewing and we were actually cutting our magazines down from 50 to 25 to save money for Upper Hudson. And basically Overdrive, which is the vendor who provides the digital magazines, after we had, as Upper Hudson as a system, had renewed our first 10 titles of the 25 we were going to renew, they said, stop, we're running this deal this week that if you renew any of your titles, you have access to all of ours. We now have 3,000 digital magazines, which is a bit of a blessing and a curse. If you want to read Japanese magazines, we have them. There's some really cool niche magazines like birding magazines, magazines for pianists, things that we could never afford to subscribe to, but there would be an interest in. And then I think there's also some things that I don't think anyone's going to be interested in. So we got to figure out how to separate the wheat from the chaff a little bit. But it seems really incongruous. It's 2020 and something good happened. So I don't know if this will be the case next year or not, but we currently can provide around 3,000 magazine titles to our public that they can download at home for free. So that's really nice. This is some of you have met Paulie. Paulie was a dog that I was fostering for a few weeks back in November. He has since been adopted, but Paulie had a lot of anxiety being left home alone. So he came to the library probably for 5 or 6 days when Kurt wasn't home and I wasn't home. And he had a few people who came back repeat days to visit Paulie. Paulie was a very, very sweet boy, and he is now a permanent resident of New Baltimore. So if you're out and about in New Baltimore, you might get to see Paulie. But I wanted to include a picture of him just because he was the highlight of the library for a week or two. Very enthusiastic about anyone who wanted to pay any attention to him. Okay, so one thing that happened in the last week is, so you all know we haven't been charging any fines, and since March we have not sent out any billed notices, which means people, if you have not brought your things back, we have just assumed you bring it back eventually. So last Monday, Upper Hudson ran a report that let us see who had things that were more than 2 months overdue, since we've been giving people the opportunity to return things since June. We sent out 114 notices, so that basically means 114 different library cards had items on them that had gone to bills. So it's going to be very interesting to see how many of them come back. It's a bit of a moment of truth. I'm sure there are many things that were checked out in February and March that we may never see again. But I'm hopeful that once people kind of see this and they're like, oh yeah, that book, and they go through the piles, some of it will come back. So that is hopefully a good thing. We haven't gotten any angry phone calls yet, so knock on wood. And then I know you guys remember that Upper Hudson had to absorb a 20% cut from New York State funds. So part of the way they're absorbing that cut is really unfortunate. They're going to drop down delivery days probably to 3 days for us. That's saving them $100,000. They're also not going to spend any money on programming or continuing ed for member libraries, and they're not adding to the rotating collections, which we every month get some new large print, new CDs, and new DVDs from Upper Hudson that every month move between the libraries. So these are all kind of unfortunate realities, but it's a zero-sum game, and it is what it is. But I wanted to make everyone aware of it, particularly the delivery. That's really gonna hit us hard because we really rely on that service. So, and then the very last thing I wanted to show was the minutes asked about how we were going to share the survey results, and we have not gotten this out as quickly as I would like to have, but we have been experimenting with a new software. This isn't totally done yet, but it's kind of a fun visual way of showing kind of how people are using the library, what services they have used. So we should be able to share those survey results out in the next week. I just want to get this a little bit more polished. It seemed like a good excuse to figure out this new software.
That looks great.
Yeah, I was
Yeah, I
really
like
happy with
that
it.
a lot.
Alex did. I gave Alex the data, and today he sent this back to me. So I thought it was, it needs a little tweaking, but overall, I thought it was much, much, much better than me saying 84% of patrons. It's so much more engaging when it's visual than when it's just a list. So any questions on any of that?
Good.
Okay, let's see here. I gotta figure out, here we go, stop sharing. I'm not really a Zoom user. Okay, got it. So there's no questions on any of that. I'll just go to the numbers. So we're still kind of closing that gap between what last year's numbers were and what this year's numbers are. We're only down 3% over last year, but you can see everything is down except for e-content, which is way up. So the e-content really counterbalances kind of small declines in like adult fiction and adult nonfiction, moderate declines in kids fiction and kids nonfiction, and precipitous declines in like kids DVDs. And I know I sent you guys the link to the digital version that lets you see all the columns. I'm looking at what I scanned, and I see the scan doesn't really show you all the columns very well, so I apologize for that. So it's, the march towards digital goes on. One nice note about the digital, this fall we were able to set things up so that kids and presumably also staff at RCS School District were able to access the digital collection using their school IDs. And this past November, 426 items were checked out using school IDs. So I thought that was really great. I was really happy to see that.
That's great.
Yeah. Any questions on those numbers? Yeah. On the financials, see, is there anything out of the ordinary? We got the pilot payments in. You will remember that at our last meeting, you guys authorized the pilot agreement. So the school district was, good to its word, and as soon as I submitted that, they released the funds. So if you look at the profit and loss, that's at $3,700. That's really the only unusual thing. Building improvements, we spent a hunk of change on getting those doors fixed. That was funded by a construction grant.
Great.
I don't know if anyone has any other questions. And if not, Marie, it's all yours.
All right, shall we look at the custom transaction detail report for December? I think we need to have approval.
Yeah, and Marie
that-
thought that the November ones were scanned in there. And I checked with Lori because she just kind of hands me the document and I didn't look at it carefully enough to see that the extra month was there. There were no changes to November. Marie had asked that question.
So we'll go to the December, and I would like to have again a motion to accept the transaction report.
Marie, I'll make the motion to accept the transaction report.
Oh, thanks, Megan. Second,
I'll second it.
okay, Sheila, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes. I don't think I said all in favor for the minutes, but I think we were all in favor.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we'll go on to the implementation of the new reopening guidelines, and Judith sent it about 6:30 this evening. I hope everybody was able to read it.
Yeah, there were no substantial changes from what I sent out last week.
No.
But so I wanted to thank everyone for their feedback. Appreciate the questions and the kind words. Thank you. So what I think I'll do is I'll just share it on my screen so that we're all, so I'm looking at it with you. But that's not it. Let's see here. Where's the right screen? Zoom. And share screen. No, share. Sent. Okay. So there's two things here. One is kind of, I thought I'd share the draft of what I'll send out in e-newsletter after this meeting. I'm assuming that there are no changes. And then the second is the kind of more detailed logistical end of what it would look like. That hasn't changed substantially at all since you looked at it last. So I really, again, appreciate people taking time to look over it last week. I spent a hunk of time on it this week and last week, and it was great to do so kind of with the confidence that this was what we were thinking. For example, we've had these signs made and printed, and they're at the library ready to go tomorrow morning. So if you guys haven't changed your heart, we'll be at the $60 in printer fees from Staples, which of course is not the end of the world, but I did really appreciate having kind of a week plus of lead time to get this all set.
Good.
Judith,
Any responses?
I just had one question.
Yep.
The last line on there, it's talking about the doorbell.
Mm-hmm.
Is that already installed?
I installed it today.
Okay. And so when people come for their appointment, is that the doorbell is for, like, are people supposed to call before they come in? Is the door locked?
The door is locked. I
Okay.
really think that's the only way to stop people from coming in willy-nilly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So the doorbell is really kind of, again, we're hoping people call, because when people call, we're hoping that probably 60 or 70% of those people we can kind of say, oh, you're here to pick up your holds, great, we'll bring them out for you, etc. And for those who need to come in, we'll be able to say, okay, great, here's the deal, you can have a 15-minute or 30-minute. It's really going to let us mediate that experience for people.
So people can just show up and call from the parking lot, even if they want to browse.
If there's an opening, they're more than welcome. So so today we started kind of anyone who is a regular visitor who came in today who said, oh, just a heads up, this may be changing very soon. You're welcome to call from the parking lot, but if you know about when you'll be in town and you want to come in, call in advance.
Okay, great.
And also a little bit of feedback. Meredith had asked last week about how this would change. You all probably know that on Friday, Cuomo kind of I don't want to say reinvented, but redefined the yellow, orange, and red zones. And one of the reasons I kind of wanted to stay away from that a little bit is because they are always shifting, kind of what they signify and what signifies them. And I think it would be hard. I don't know, maybe I just like to have a little more control and a little more certainty in my world than being like, oh, what's Andrew Cuomo going to say tomorrow? But that being said, I think that I doubt we'd have much choice in the matter if we went into a red zone, which is if projections show that we're within 3 weeks of, I believe it's 85% or 90%, I'm not sure off the top of my head, of hospital capacity, then I think we'd be going back to the spring. And if that were the case, we'd shut down again. But those metrics may change between now and when that happens. So.
Yeah, I only asked about that because it would be so nice to be able to tell people, like, hey, here's what to expect from the library. But with them changing criteria all the time, I think you're right. I don't think we can say that.
And it's something to be said, and I have the last few days kind of saying to people, oh, you know how to use curbside, and trying to set people up with the expectation that there may be a shift. But we learned in March that, we really only gave people a half a day's notice that we would be closing, and it was a bit of a madhouse. And when your goal is to not have a whole bunch of people in the library at once, it's kind of nice for people to kind of gradually learn that these changes are happening, as opposed to
sure.
Oh, be sure to be at the library by December 15th, because I mean, Lori was there today, and there was, a line 3 people deep waiting for the copier. And you're like, this isn't it's not a huge deal, but it's not an ideal situation either.
Right.
So we're going to be able to oh, okay, you want to use a copier? Well, 15 minutes from now, you can, the copier will be available. Come on in. It's opposed to these people. There ended up being 5 people in the lobby because I didn't realize other people were waiting behind the line for the copier, thinking it was a line to come into the library. So, we'll have a little more control over that kind of thing. That's not normal, but we had a backlog this morning. Any other thoughts?
Or any other responses or reactions or thoughts about it? Okay. we've already, I think, discussed the response to Sweets for Santa.
Yeah, I think the only, so hang on, can we have a motion to approve the change in guidelines? Change in opening status?
Right, I thought we had to. I wasn't quite
Yeah.
sure.
I think it would be
I
good.
know we had agreed upon this in a former, but not these, right? We had in a former.
I make that, if you need it, I make the motion that we accept the new reopening guidelines.
Right,
And I'll second it. This is Meredith.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. So the only thing I want to say about Sweets with Santa was I thought that the letter writing part went so well that I think we'd like to do it again, even in kind of quote unquote normal times. I think that it's a great literacy component for a library program for the kids to write letters. And you guys obviously made it super easy for me by writing most of the letters. And I just know that it was really fun. Obviously, we wouldn't do it on Zoom if we didn't have to, but for me, the perk was, I had the list of what Santa was going to say, so I could kind of watch the kids as, I knew who Santa was going to go to next, and watch their face as they got that really personalized response to Santa. It was really fantastic. So I hope the kids enjoy receiving their letters as much as they enjoy kind of getting Santa's one-liner that was directed to them. So I'm just really happy that as an organization we were able to kind of pivot and take this program and supposed to be we can't do it, to making it, and I really thought that in some ways it was more special, kind of because the kids really did get that individualized. Or maybe they get to talk to Santa. I don't get to hear it, and this year I really got to hear it. So that was really cool. So thank you all for the idea.
Hey, Judith.
Yes.
I think the last time when we talked about it last month, we were going to use the same Santa from last year. When did that change?
When he said no.
Oh,
he didn't want to do
that would
it
do
on
it. Okay, fair enough.
His take was, I Zoom my grandkids who are little kid age, and Zoom's just not the same. So, obviously you have to respect that when you're asking a volunteer. So Alex, who's our newest staff member, kind of really jumped into the void there, which was good of him. I called him right afterwards. I said, you did just fine. It was good. So I don't know how it was as someone who doesn't work with him every day, but I think he's a pretty kind of introverted guy. So for him to be able to ho ho ho, I think he stepped into the challenge.
I thought he did a great job.
It's fun. So good, and thanks for the feedback. Okay, great.
And we should add Sweets for Santa. I just noticed there was an S missing, but of course. Oh God, sorry.
How many times did I look at that, Marie? 3 or 4 times.
I know. How many times did we go over that? Sorry.
It's at least as much my fault.
Right. Yeah, it was mine this time. Okay. We've already talked about the virtual programs. Right.
So we're thinking of in January we're going to roll out a spice club, in which there's going to be a spice of the month. I think I'm going to start with cardamom. So what we would do is the library would buy some cardamom in bulk and give out a couple of tablespoons of the spice of the month to people, and then give out some recipes. And ideally, I'd love to have people then meet online and talk about what they cooked. I don't know if people will do that or not, but I do think they'll pick up the spice and hopefully cook. And then also, Carol and I were talking about, can we do a paint and sip on Zoom? I know that people do it. I don't think you can give meaningful feedback on people's paintings on Zoom, but if it's primarily a social thing, I don't think people will mind that much. So that's another thing we're working on. But I think it's kind of a standing agenda item, because if people see something or hear something hey, it'd be cool for the library to try that, please speak up, because we're obviously just kind of throwing some stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Okay, the construction grant updates.
Okay, so we got about $25,000 came sometime in the last few weeks. That's now been deposited in our capital funds account. So those are the funds for the doors, which we've already spent, and then the funds for the electronic sign, which will get done sometime this coming year. I imagine they'll want to wait for the ground to thaw, and I'm not in a huge rush. I think it's going to be more important when we have in-person programming. Although certainly for weeks like this, when we have a big message change we're trying to get out, it would be helpful. And then the flip side of that is every spring we kind of think about, are there other changes to our facilities that we want to make that would make sense to apply for a construction grant update for? I am coming to you with no suggestions right now, but I just want to plant that seed. If we had a wish list, if you're like, it would be great if the library had this, just kind of put that in your back burner so we could talk about it in a month or two. We're in a really nice position in that nothing is falling apart right now. There are no urgent needs. This is not something that we have to apply for. It's just that, funds are available if we do have a desire to pursue a construction project. So just kind of the reminder that we'll probably start talking about that a little bit in a month or two.
Back in 2018, we had looked at an environmental policy. And so
Yeah, that
tonight,
was
we're
interesting.
going to look at it again.
Okay. So backstory for the couple of newer people, because this has been going on for a while. The New York Library Association has a sustainable library certification program. And a few years ago, I was involved in kind of helping figure out the framework for that. I haven't been involved about probably since 2017, but I'm like, it would be fantastic for our library to pursue that certification. And we started it, and then things got busy, as they are wont to do. But this fall, as I was chatting with Marie before the call, I'm home every other week, and I have a lot more control over my time when I'm home. So I'm like, I really want to prioritize finishing the certification process. And I'm fortunate in that we have 2 interns from UAlbany that a friend of Lori's, who's a professor at the MBA program, was able to connect us with. So I've been working with these 2 young ladies, moving through these steps towards certification. So I scanned in that red and orange document is really just a list of the steps that we've done, and the red ones are the steps that are not finished yet. So you can see certainly the bulk of the work is done. And we had initially passed a environmental policy, but as I worked through all these additional steps, one thing I asked the interns to do was to see if we can put a little bit more meat on the bones of the policy and add some action items. And I know that when you're working with policies, you want to keep your procedures and your policies separate. So we're kind of skirting the line a little bit between what here is truly a policy and what are the more procedural or implementation items. But I think that overall they really did kind of get things that could be counted as policy-esque, because they really are kind of guidelines that have kind of a more micro or detailed implementation. So mainly I wanted to let people know that I hadn't, this hasn't completely fallen off the face of the earth. I think in a month or two this will be wrapped up and we'll kind of become a sustainable certified library. At least there's 2 parts. So that's the first part. And then part of that is adopting the environmental policy. And if the board is comfortable with the more detailed version, I would ask that next month we vote to approve that.
Judith, what's it called again? Recertification for what?
So it's complicated. It's the New York Library Association has a Sustainable Libraries Initiative. This is broken into 2 parts. On the part I'm working on is actually run by the Westchester Green Business Council, which had already developed a framework for any kind of business being certified as sustainable. So as you look through that spreadsheet I sent, none of those things are really library specific. They're all things that any kind of organization can do, and it's very infrastructure focused. So, you guys all know that in the last couple of years, we've put solar panels up, right? We replaced all our bulbs with LED bulbs. So kind of slowly, even though we weren't really actively updating this checklist, we were taking the steps that would get us in that direction. So once we finish this, which again I think will be done in a month or two, we'll then go to the more library specific one, which is, I honestly don't know that much about what the details are because I haven't started it, but it's like how is the operation of your library, not your facility, but your organization, affected by principles about sustainability and kind of making sure you're accessible to your entire community. So as I learn more about that, I'll certainly share it out. But I've been in this infrastructure and facilities mindset for the entire time we've been working on it.
I think you're very fortunate to have the interns at this moment.
I completely agree, both because they can do some of the work and
Glad that worked
honestly, it's great because I meet with them pretty much every Thursday, and it's like, oh wait, Thursday's coming. I gotta make sure I have something to share with them. I think I also told Marie last week our normal Thursday wasn't working, and one of them was traveling on Friday. So I said, well, I'm available really, or I can meet you guys at like 7 on Friday morning, kind of thinking that these 2 graduate students would not be interested in meeting me at 7 o'clock on Friday morning and be safe. But I was wrong, and they took me up on it. So they're not slackers.
Janet said they were her best students.
Well, I'm not surprised to hear that. I've been very impressed by them. One of them is from Germany, and you wouldn't even, like, her English is so unaccented. It blows me away how, like, if you listen really carefully, you can hear a tiny tinge of an accent. But she must have worked on that so hard. It's really impressive. So I don't know if you have any kind of concerns about any of the nuts and bolts or questions about any of the specifics prior to next month.
So we'll definitely put that on the agenda for next month for board approval.
Great.
Okay. And so now to the annual calendar.
Okay.
The
So
last-
this is usually just a pro forma thing, but I got an email from my counterpart at the Voorheesville Library wanting to know if we celebrate Juneteenth, or we close for Juneteenth. And I said, honestly, like, we haven't even talked about it. So I thought that, when we reviewed the annual calendar, it would be a good time to bring up that possibility. It's a New York State holiday. As of last year, I'm sure people know this is something that has been adopted in different organizations across time. I don't know how that will be received in our community. One other thing to keep in mind is we are not closed on Martin Luther King Day. We used to be closed on Martin Luther King Day, but we are now open. It's a National Day of Service, and to me that made a lot of sense in terms of kind of what can is it more meaningful to have a day of service in which people honor the memory of Dr. King, or to be closed, which of course is also seen as honoring. So I just wanted to kind of put those bits of information out there and see what people thought.
I can't remember what June 13th is significant for.
Juneteenth? I think it's actually June 19th. It's the day that the last slaves, I think it was in Texas, slaves learned of their emancipation.
Oh.
Ah.
But like, if people aren't, it's interesting that, people aren't even necessarily know what the holiday is. It makes sense for the library to take it off because people are going to be like, why are you closed?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people know that?
Right.
But
Well,
there could be some kind of a program or at least something for awareness of what the date is.
I would lean in that direction too.
Yeah.
The way you kind of handled Martin Luther King Day, I like that. If I think obviously I need more awareness.
Well, a lot. We all do.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that in the last year or two, people are much more aware of. I don't think schools, I know all the libraries closed, I don't think all the schools are, but it's changed rapidly. I think like 2 or 3 years ago, most people would have been like, oh, what's Juneteenth? Whereas now the Voorheesville Library is thinking about closing for it, and their demographics are not like Albany's. And we could also just kind of say, we've talked about it and we'll kind of give it a year or two. If it becomes a federal holiday, then maybe that would change things.
Right.
I think, some awareness would be good though,
Yep.
whatever.
I agree.
Judith, I wonder if you could institute some sort of programming to like get people on board with what Juneteenth is. And then maybe if it becomes a federal holiday, then, we'll figure it out from there. But I think, education and programming is the way to go for the first maybe year or so.
Yeah, maybe there's an author. I mean,
I was thinking of an author.
Yeah, that'd be good. Okay, great. Thank you.
Perhaps at the next meeting, when people want to learn a little more about it, and we'll then have maybe some additional comments. Want to look at some of the dynamics of doing this, or some of the implications of doing this, or I think if we give people at least the next month to think about it and learn more about it, become more aware of it, then we could discuss it perhaps again.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
I agree.
Okay.
Sure.
Judith, are there any other miscellaneous, or
Nothing.
does anyone have any comments? No? All right. If not, then I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Oh, I'll second it.
Nobody wants to leave.
I thought nobody wants to leave this meeting. All in favor?
Hi.
Okay, motion passed. And again, happy holiday to all of you.
Yeah.
Happy
same to you.
holidays to you too.
That's for all of you guys.
Take care and stay safe.
You too.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Bye-bye.
There's light at
Bye.
the end of the tunnel now.
That's
I
right.
hope.
Yay.
I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, Meredith and Meg or Marie. I'll email you both. I was
Okay.
gonna see if I need either Meredith or Marie to come in and sign checks, but I'll send you and Meredith an email, Marie.
Okay. All right.
Good.
Okay,
Megan.
we're all
I like the
on.
leopard print.
Hi.
You look
Good to see you.
fantastic. Yep. Okay.
Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.